The lights are illuminated above the drivers now, and we are away here for the Bahrain Grand Prix, getting off to an absolutely shocking start as per usual. You can see going 3 wide here down the pit straight. Now breaking down to turn, will we be able to gain on Grosjean and Ericsson, breaking a little bit earlier than the pair, and I think Ericsson's being forced out a little bit wide. As you can see, it might have the inside line for this next corner, but in fact no, he gained the position on Ericsson and we are now up into P10. In fact, there's a spin just ahead in the form of Nico Hulkenberg, who must have had a collision with the Red Bull. They just seemed to lock cars really, and Hulkenberg just couldn't get away from it, and he had to turn away from Ricciardo somehow, and in doing so he actually spun out of the Grand Prix. They're going to try and go round the outside of Romain Grosjean going into this next corner, and he has indeed pulled off that move up into 8th place. But as you can see, caution, yellow flag, that's Ricciardo and Felipe Nasr that has spun out on their own there. Daniel Ricciardo here is on board show. In fact, he just drives straight to the back of Nasr and almost launched him to the air there. Again, an absolutely astonishing result here for the Brazilian driver, 6th place.
Welcome to the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix. Over the next few minutes, the teams will be heading out onto this classic Formula One track for what we're expecting to be a very hectic practice session. Catalunya saw its first race back in 1991, and the drivers are really familiar with this circuit, as it's also been used extensively as a testing track over the years as well.
Well, it's a fast-flowing circuit that really pushes drivers and cars to their limits. There are 2 DRS activation zones, but the best overtaking opportunity for the drivers is in the second DRS zone along the main straight.
They may be great friends off the track, but as we well know from history, friendships are hard to sustain whilst you're battling it out for supremacy within a team. How's the relationship between Seb and Kimi surviving under these pressures?
I think Kimi enjoys working with Seb. They certainly feel comfortable around each other, but don't let that laid-back exterior fool you. Kimi is still the Iceman, and he'll want to assert himself against the 4-time world champion and prove that he can come out on top.
Hey guys, what is up? It is StopMatt1998 here, and here I am for part 5 of my Felipe Nasr career here at the Circuit de Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix. It'll be very interesting to see how we get on in this Grand Prix, obviously after a brilliant result last time out in Bahrain. We're hoping to try and match that, or even best that this time, but first, let's get into the qualifying report. There were contrasting fortunes for both Force India drivers as Nico Hulkenberg salvaged 10th with teammate Sergio Perez all the way down in 18th. It was a very similar story at Lotus, with Grosjean continuing his impressive form from Bahrain with a 9th place result. Maldonado, however, struggled to 15th. Carlos Sainz just got the edge over Max Verstappen as the 2 rookies were separated by just over 100th of a second. Fernando Alonso was not at all pleased with his qualifying performance as he could only manage 16th in front of his home fans. Button out qualifying him just added more salt to the wound. More engine dramas for Daniel Kvyat left him down in the lowly 17th place, leading to serious questions over the reliability of the Renault engine. Bottas got the better of teammate Massa for the first time since Melbourne with a 5th place result. Kimi Raikkonen was able to split the 2 Mercedes as he's only 0.089 off Nico Rosberg's pole position time. Felipe Nasr once again qualified in 8th position, and with his long run pace looking strong, his confidence was high going into the Grand Prix tomorrow.
Welcome to the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya here in Spain for what is expected to be a very closely contested race. Driving one of those Mercedes to the top of the timesheets in qualifying was Germany's Nico Rosberg. He'll have made quite a few people sit up and take notice with that performance, not least his teammate Lewis Hamilton.
He's definitely going to be difficult to beat today, but anything can happen, so we'll have to keep a close eye on how this unfolds over the course of the race.
Looking beyond the front couple of rows, who else do you think is on for a good race today?
Valtteri Bottas looked in a bullish mood in the driver's press conference, a real fire in his eyes, so expect a strong result from the Finn today.
So here we are then on the grid for the Spanish Grand Prix, and obviously out-qualifying teammate Marcus Ericsson and once again sitting in 8th place on the grid. I think that's the 3rd time this season where we have qualified in 8th place, so a very favourable position of ours. But as you can see, look at the strategy there, a brief look at the strategy. We are doing a free stop today. We're going to try and make that work. Obviously the tyre is quite high, but not as dramatic as Malaysia or China, as the lights are illuminated above the drivers now. And we are away here for the Spanish Grand Prix, getting off to a pretty poor launch. And Romain Grosjean with an absolutely storming start. Romain Grosjean, all my career members always seem to get the best starts. But as you can see, on our outside now is our teammate Marcus Ericsson, who's gone off to a pretty good launch. We're going to try and make the move stick on Daniel Ricciardo. We're going to try and regain those positions that we lost at the start. But Grosjean's actually overtaken Ricciardo now, so he's up into 7th. All the way, I believe, from 9th place is where he started. But now Hulkenberg there trying to go around their outside. We do quickly regain that position on the Force India driver, but now obviously I think one thing we need to work on are our starts, because that's the main issue we're having really in these Grand Prix. Our pace throughout the Grand Prix aren't too bad. Obviously when the tyre wear kicks in, that's when it starts getting really bad, but I think the starts is something we're going to have to work on, because we can't keep on having these poor launches and costing us further positions and having to do extra work in this Grand Prix. So we could even get better positions if we work on our starts. But as you can see, it just ahead on lap 4, Daniel Ricciardo is going to try and make the move up the inside of the Lotus of Romain Grosjean. You can see Grosjean going to try and finish position of Ricciardo being forced out a little bit wide there. No contact. Well, there's a bit of contact made, a little bit of wheel banging, but I think both of them obviously, just stay in a straight line. Lucky there that none of them spun out from that. But obviously, we're going to look to take advantage of that. I think Grosjean and Ricciardo may battle it out a little bit more. You can see, looking on the replay here, to see how close that was between the Red Bull and the Lotus driver. Grosjean going out the inside, forcing Ricciardo out there. I think Grosjean just understeered out and couldn't really do much about going into the side of Ricciardo. But now we are on the attack here. We're going to try and overtake Romain Grosjean up the inside of Turn 1 with the aid of DRS, and we have pulled off that move up into 7th place. And now Daniel Ricciardo is next up on our hit list. But however, on lap 8, this is the lap we're due into the pits. Not too much happened in this first stint, just a few battles here and there with the Lotus and the Red Bull. But Daniel Ricciardo escaped. Now Grosjean has just re-overtaken us with the aid of DRS on that back straight. Our tyres are clearly gone. You can see even getting a little bit of a step out there going into the pit. So very lucky there not to spin into the pit wall. But now Romain Grosjean obviously pitting with us here along with Toro Rosso, and I believe that was a Force India as well. But obviously Grosjean remaining ahead of us. He was obviously ahead of us before we came into the pits, but now we're just going to try and look to gain on Romain Grosjean in this stint, and we're going to try and get an undercut. I believe that Daniel Ricciardo stayed out another couple of laps, so we're going to try and do that, as well as taking advantage of the leads that have decided to pit in a couple of laps after. So as you can see here, we're going to try and go around the outside of Romain Grosjean, getting a real bit of oversteer there. We have maintained the position, and we have overtaken Romain Grosjean for 13th position, what is currently. But now looking on a couple of laps later, we're going to overtake Sergio Perez, and that is Daniel Ricciardo who's just rejoined out of the pits. And we've overtaken both of them here, both Ricciardo and Sergio Perez, making a bit of contact there with Ricciardo's side pod. We have actually managed to undercut Ricciardo successfully, so that's gone very well there. Just what we wanted. But now looking at Max Verstappen here with Kimi Raikkonen, and Verstappen spun out on Kimi Raikkonen's front tyre then. I think Kimi Raikkonen is actually the effective race leader. You can see Lewis Hamilton just getting past the Toro Rosso driver as well. But now we've caught up with Verstappen, who's just rejoined from his spin. We're going to try and overtake him here, going into the final corner. But then Verstappen actually hits us there. I think his intention was to go into the pits, and he hit us. And I think he almost spun into Daniel Ricciardo. I don't think he quite made contact with the Australian driver, but it was incredible because you see there, Ricciardo just about braking before Max Verstappen would have collided into him. So very good avoidance there from Daniel Ricciardo. You can see we're now on lap 12, have the DRS here on Felipe Nasr. We said we were going to try and take advantage of the leaders who pitted a couple of laps after us. We are doing this here with Felipe Nasr rejoining just ahead of us, and his tyres aren't yet up to temperature, so we have taken full advantage here. We are up into 6th position here in the Spanish Grand Prix. It's given to pretty much the same point on lap 14. Our tyres have gone off at this point. We're going to be pitting in a few laps time for another set of optional tyres. You can see we're holding up a little bit of a train here with Felipe Nasr and Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel Ricciardo, I believe, is on a bit of a different strategy, and I think he's going to be pitting very soon for the prime tyres. He might try something a little bit different here in the Spanish Grand Prix. But then Felipe Nasr getting the supreme traction and grip out of the corner. Obviously, him pitting a few laps after us has given him the advantage here with the fresher tyres. But again, just no traction to try and defend that position from Felipe Nasr, or even regain that position on the Brazilian driver. As you can see, we're going to have to settle for 6th position now. Now, skipping on to lap 17, we're going to change our tyres onto another set of options, hoping to stay ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, because I believe Ricciardo did pit in a few laps earlier. As you can see, that is Button. I believe that is Ricciardo behind Jensen Button. Not entirely sure. I think, actually, no, that is Daniel Kvyat, I think. So Kvyat is there. I'm not sure where Ricciardo is in all this. I think Ricciardo is a position behind Kvyat. We're going to have to wait and see. But as you can see, we're getting all sorts of oversteer. Our tyres clearly aren't up to temperature as of yet, and Button has taken full advantage of that. He is now up into 7th position, and now we're down into 8th. We're going to try and gain that position back on the McLaren Honda driver here. Obviously, the McLaren Honda having no straight line speed whatsoever. We're going to take full advantage of that, go down the inside, and swiftly make our way up into 7th place here at the Spanish Grand Prix. You can see Button there will hopefully hold up Daniel Ricciardo. Now, obviously, one of our challenges earlier on, but he has dropped back. Obviously, he must have rejoined in this training. He's been really affected by that. But now, skipping on to lap 21, Raikkonen and Felipe Nasr have indeed pitted for the, I think it's Raikkonen's 3rd time and Felipe Nasr's 2nd time. I think Raikkonen obviously was with us just before we pitted in for the 2nd time, and we've actually rejoined ahead of both Nasr and Raikkonen. So getting an undercut on Nasr, obviously he overtook us just before our 2nd stop, but now we're making our final stop here for the prime tires. I'm not sure if Massa and Raikkonen are pitting again, however. And you can see that that's Daniel Ricciardo, one of our earlier challengers, actually rejoined ahead of us here. Now, skipping on to lap 29, barely anything happened in this Grand Prix up until this point where we finally caught up with Daniel Ricciardo. We were about a second and a bit faster. We didn't really have supreme pace over Daniel Ricciardo. We really were going on the attack in this final set. We were determined to gain more points there and try and match our result from the Bahrain Grand Prix, which is still possible because I don't think Massa's too far up the road after Ricciardo. You can see we're trying to overtake Ricciardo around the outside, but Ricciardo's defending really well here, putting his car in all the correct positions. But now I think we're going to get the supreme traction out of this corner now and going into the last chicane here. And I think we just about made that move, even though we did run a little bit wide there, and we have now made our move up into 7th place. Now Felipe Nasr is the next car ahead, but unfortunately, guys, it just wasn't enough. Once again, one lap too late. Felipe Nasr, as you can see there, a good 2 seconds up the road, but I think 7th position is very respectable today. That's 1 position ahead of where we qualified. You can see exceeding the track limits right at the end there, just desperate to get past Massa, but it's not going to be enough. But I think 7th place and 6 solid points in this Grand Prix. Once again, another fantastic result. Really, we couldn't have expected for much more than this. Obviously, Felipe Nasr surprisingly managed to make his tyres last for a good 18 laps, his prime tyres. That was absolutely just unbelievable, really. I can't believe how the AI can still manage their tyres for that long. Obviously, Massa, we were reading him in by a good 3 seconds on that last lap alone. But as you can see, once again, just over a second off. And looking at the race result, Hamilton won with Vettel 2nd, Rosberg 3rd, the 2 Finnish drivers 4th and 5th. Kim Raikkonen finishing in 5th after making a free stop. Fortunately, that looks like a mistake from him in the end. Massa 6th, Nasr 7th, Ricciardo 8th, Button 9th, and Daniel Kvyat and the other Red Bull sealing 10th place. While teammate Marcus Ericsson having a very poor race, 270th. But now looking at the Drivers' Championship, we are still in 7th with 28 points. Once again, we've increased our lead to Daniel Ricciardo behind us, 11 points. So he's one of our championship rivals this year by the looks of it. Along with Bossolo, Bottas is 12 points ahead of us here. So we've got to try and see if we can try and battle him towards the end of the year. It's going to be very tough, though, battling the Williams, but we're going to have to wait and see. Now, looking at the Constructors' Championship, as you can see, we are level with Red Bull Racing on points, where the game has put us actually ahead of them. So we are currently in 4th position in the Constructors, courtesy of all our points. Let's hope that Marcus Ericsson picks himself up in the future race, and hopefully we can score some more solid points as the season goes on. But anyway, guys, if you have enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.